Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of the Take the Initiative Season 5 series. Today I'm still playing Krennic, but this is a very interesting game because I am playing the new Han with ECL. I'm playing against that. After the game, the player was kind enough to send me their list, so we can actually take a look at that before the game. Not gonna go into my list. Check out episode 2 if you want to hear some of my thoughts on that, and then we'll just go straight to the Han list. As you can see, it's a little bit different to what I played. Mine was much more, I would say, rebel oriented, a little bit more aggressive maybe, and this is more ramp oriented. So you have resupplies and Spark of Hope, and you have the Reckless Gunslingers for the combo to use Spark the first turn. If you haven't seen, there's a guy called Star Wars Dad that made a very nice clickbait title, playing Poe turn 2 and Crate Dragon turn 4. That's actually possible with the new Han. So this deck shares a little bit more towards that list. I think the interesting cards here are Akbar and Modded Cohort, and the Desperado Freighter. Those are cards that you probably wouldn't see in that many of these new Han lists. But I really like the Modded Cohort actually, because just being able to do a 2-for-1 when you're playing against aggro is so valuable, and having that ambush built in is really good for that. Okay, yeah, this list is made by Sneeze, and we can just jump straight into the game. So, as I said, still playing the Krennic list. I have been playing a lot of other decks, but mostly on Carabest or just play testing with friends. So for my fourth league match, I decided to stick with Krennic. We'll see, I might switch it up after this, but you're gonna have to wait and see. So opening hand here is decent. We have a space unit and a ground unit, so I'm able to match my opponent here because they got the initiative. Ramp in this matchup, I thought I can't greed for it because I'm probably the control player here and they're the aggressor, but in hindsight maybe it would have been good to resupply, especially since I'm playing against the ramp deck. At this point I didn't know that myself, so I'm just using Make an Opening here to clear that away, make sure I'm not getting a wing leader played against me. So the initiative here is pretty nice, I would say, because we can clear out the K2 with Death Trooper. But now we top deck the Super Laser Technician, and that's gonna be good just to get Krennic out early. Yeah, and our opponent is just AFK here. The decision whether or not you should ECL Super Laser Tech is always difficult, I think, because ECLing Gideon Hask and Steadfast Battalion is kind of what you want to do in most games with the Krennic. But when you don't know what deck you're playing against, or like the list, like what type of deck it is, then it's very difficult to make the optimal decision. Here I kind of get punished quite a lot. I wouldn't say punished, but we can see the power of ramping on their side as well. So I'm just trying to deal with this board somehow, and right now that plan is to use Overwhelming Barrage on the what's it called? Star Viper. So Wrecker is one of the new good cards that's kind of the reason behind the popularity of Aggression ECL decks. Green Sabine is probably also going to play Wrecker. And Poe, of course. Poe is really nice. Yeah, here I top decked Vader, so we don't need to use the Overwhelming Barrage yet. We can just clear out the Han leader. And our opponent's on 7 resources right now. So yeah, we're gonna see a Desperado Freighter. That's actually a super interesting card. I think it was amazing to use that with Han when I played on the pre-releases, but I haven't actually considered it for oh, I see I did 1 damage too much there on the Wrecker. I thought it had 5 remaining, but yeah, that was a misplay. Yeah, I was about to say I hadn't considered Freighter actually being a constructed card, but I think it can be really good. Yeah, dang, if I hadn't missed that 1 damage, then the Freighter would be dead at this point. Interesting, maybe this game could have turned out differently than it did. But you're gonna see the power of Han being able to play Crate Dragon for 8 is just amazing. So here I'm playing the Death Trooper, dealing 2 damage, and then my opponent decides to do 2 more to Vader. This way they can next turn trade and get a lot of overwhelm damage in. Yeah, I just deal 2 more with the client, so the Crate Dragon is gonna die back when they trade. Yeah, but don't forget, Wrecker is not a 7/7, he's a 7/6. So we take 9 damage there from the Overwhelm. We have the power of Darkside to get rid of that Freighter. But now we're gonna get our Death Trooper killed by the Akbar when played. Just gonna play out that Sentinel. And here we can kind of see a little bit of the power of Han, in the sense that you can just spam units. So the ramp is not only good for playing those big units, the Crate Dragons for instance, but you can really, like this, put 3 units on the board and overwhelm your opponent that way as well. So now we got really bad draws. The client can only do so much here. He does 1 more power because of the damage, but when they clear out that modded cohort. But I forgot the client should survive, of course. Because the cohort has raid. Okay, so Akbar goes to base, and our power decks are this a little bit awkward here. So considering what sequence to play these cards in, and I think I'm never gonna get to kill anything else significant, so I just used the dark side first. But here we see Cassian being smuggled in. He enters play ready, and we have no answer to that. So with the red 3, that's gonna be able to hit my base for 4, and we're gonna go to game 2. So sideboarding, I've started to just put the 10 cards in and then remove 10 cards. That way your opponent doesn't know how many cards you're siding. I think that's good practice to do in general in real life as well, but the problem is sometimes that can kind of be a little bit more difficult, because then you're just looking through the 60 and trying to pick out 10 cards to remove. So here I think I struggled a bit to find the last card, I put out the top targets and the relentlesses, and Palpatine's return. Decided to put out one Ep.4 because the stats are not trading for that much, and I would rather use my removal pieces to get rid of those base units. And here I'm considering like the Snokes, for instance, the Avenger, but I do need some ways to deal with my opponent's late game plan as well. I know now that it's a ramp oriented deck with Crate Dragon, for instance, but I'm removing Devastator because it's not really gonna work against Crate Dragon. And now I need one more card. So I think if I didn't do that mistake with the Overwhelming Barrage, maybe the game could have turned out a little bit differently, because then my Power of the Dark Side would have been able to deal with the Crate Dragon. Regardless, it is what it is. Sometimes you just do a math mistake. I do like to see the rivals fall in hand. It's tempting to keep it just because of that, so we have an out to Crate Dragon. I would say it's a little bit greedy to go for that, because then we have to hold a card in our hand for the whole game. So here I'm rather just keeping both Gideon and Steadfast Battalion, so I can choose the best card to actually ambush. On turn 5, yeah. And we see Power of the Dark Side on the top of the deck. That's pretty good. And our opponent doesn't have a good play, just an Akbar on turn 1. That's really nice for us. Here I would say we have a not that easy choice when it comes to resourcing. I decided to get rid of Gideon now because the 7 power on the Steadfast is just a little bit better at, for instance, killing the Han solo leader. And here we see the Spark of Hope play. So they use Han for free to just self-kill their gunslinger and then ramp. So that's a pretty cool combo. I mean, it works with any 1-drop that has 2 or less health. So in my rebel list, I've now added the Spec-Force Soldier to get rid of Sentinel and to do that combo, possibly ramp. But I'm still not sure if Spark of Hope belongs in that list. It's gonna be interesting to see. So here he deployed Han on an empty board. I get to just remove it with the Power of the Dark Side. But he has Poe, which is really nice. So he gets to take care of the client. And I'm taking the initiative here because I don't want to take possibly 8 damage to the base on our first action. So here we have multiple ways of killing Poe. We could use ECL with Death Trooper, with Steadfast Battalion, or we could Overwhelming Barrage. And I actually decide to Barrage here. And my reasoning is that if our opponent plays a Wrecker or another big unit, then ECLing the battalion will be easier, because we don't necessarily have a unit on the board to use Overwhelming Barrage on. But ECLing Steadfast will always work for 5, unless they have a Sentinel to block the battalion, of course. Right, 6 resources. They have the initiative, and they're on 7, so they get to U-wing. And I think this is a pretty good hit for them. U-wing, of course, is just an amazing card. I really like this style of playing ECL with Poe and Wrecker and Ewing. I've also considered it in Cassian. Cassian kind of gives you just more value against control, but Han is, I think, just better in general because you're so flexible when you can play cards one less. So here we get a pretty good ambush with Death Trooper. Just remove that cohort with the 2 damage and then ECL into K2. And since the Death Trooper was damaged, then we get to deal 4. Yep. So our opponent decided to make us discard a card with K2. So we discarded Steadfast so we can still play the Star Viper. I'm not sure if that was the right choice. The Star Viper is not necessarily going to help us that much if they just overwhelm ground. And now we don't have that 5/5, which could have been really useful to take back the ground arena. Here comes another K2. And the Echo-based Defender. That's pretty rough. It's sad that we haven't ramped as well, so we're not on 8 resources right now. That Walker could really help out. I could have used Rival's Fall there, but I instead decided to take the initiative just to get that restore. And I think that maybe will come to bite me. I'm playing the Walker and just drawing that Death Trooper because there was just 1 health to heal. And then we see Cassian again, a really good card. And then here we can see what I mentioned earlier, Han being able to just flood the board when you've ramped. And this board is really problematic. I think the only thing that could really save us from this is Super Laser Blast. Sadly, that's not in the list yet. Maybe it belongs there. Not sure. I think in an open decklist format, it definitely belongs there, just to scare your opponent. And with Crate Dragon dropping now, that's just the, I don't know, icing on the cake for them winning the game. So on the good side, we have Rival's Fall, so we at least have an answer, but then they get to do 6 damage to our base or to the Walker. It's gonna be pretty rough. Avenger, I guess, doesn't really work against Crate Dragon either. Even if the board was empty, I mean, it does if you can afford to take 9 damage to the base. Then it actually can be a pretty nice answer because Crate Dragon only lets you damage ground units or the base, so they can't take out the Avenger. Here, they decided to do 6 damage to the Walker and then trade with K2 and make us discard a card. So actually, because of all the trading, the board seems a lot better now. I think if they just would have gone base and put all the damage on base, we would have been in an even worse spot. But let's see what they have. We play the Avenger because we're not gonna be able to really do anything with that bounty. And here we again see Han getting that value, playing the Desperado Freighter for 1 less and playing Poe. So that's 2 units that's gonna hit us for a lot of damage. And we got Snoke, so we can kind of reduce some damage, but it's gonna be hard for us to heal with the client again because they can kind of decide the sequencing here. With Avenger, we could try to pressure for the win, so deal 8 to the base and then make them remove a unit, but I instead think, okay, I need to remove as most damage as I can. So I decide to attack the freighter, and then my opponent just asks how it works again, but they can decide to just remove the freighter and the Avenger takes no damage. So here Poe can hit us for 8 with doing the on attack. And then at this point we kind of know it's GG, because Snoke can only reduce Cassian to 1 damage, but if you remember from the early game, they used Spark of Hope on a Relentless Ruthless Gunslinger, it's called, yeah. So that's the final damage. Now looking back at the game, I think I probably made some tiny misplays here and there that could have changed the outcome of the game. I think if you know you're playing against the ramp deck, you probably should try to ramp as well to keep up. But again, the Great Dragons are hard to deal with regardless. Power Dark Side is maybe the best answer in the deck if it's played on an empty board, but it's seldom played on an empty board when you're playing against Han. They can just put so many units out with the cost reduction. So definitely a very interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to playing it more with these decks to figure out how to maneuver it, and if it is a favorable matchup for Han, or if it isn't and you just have to play it a little bit differently. Of course, heart of the cards also matters. Sometimes you don't get the answers you need. Regardless, that was my second loss, so right now I'm 2-2 in the league, and that means I have to win the next 4 games if I want to qualify to the top cut. So that's gonna be very interesting to see if I'm able to do that. Let me know if you have any feedback on this commentary format, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Peace.